Shalom, everyone. Welcome to this week's Living Torah. First of all, my thanks to those who hosted me this past weekend up in Winchester, Kentucky. Great time. Enjoyed it. Enjoyed seeing some folks, and there's some news coming out of there that you're going to hear. Those of you that have, through the years, enjoyed my program. Life on Purpose. Got to remember which one it is. I get Foundations for Life and Life on Purpose when I'm saying this. But God willing, tonight we're going to get back to that program. Myself and Alex Stiles. It's something we've been trying to do for quite a while. Alex has been going through a number of issues, which we'll talk about on the program. But it's also going to give way to something new for Life on Purpose. So that's just a little bit of teaser. You might want to make sure that you're subscribed on podcasts, on YouTube, on Vimeo, whatever, and pick that up. So we're going to get into this week's Torah portion of I Pleaded. And Deuteronomy chapter 3, verse 23 through chapter 7, verse 11. Just got in new glasses, and so if I'm trying to figure out where in the world the right spot is, that's the problem. Let me first say, I just got off the recording with Hanok Young, who is up in Iowa right now. He's actually heading to Colorado for this weekend. The events that are happening in Israel right now are it's confusing. It is on a daily basis. What is happening? What is going on? And to even consider that we're going to know a day, a week from now, what might be happening in Israel. But I find, as I said to Honok, I find myself at times growing weary of the battle that is. This past weekend, day 666, was the day prior, was the Shabbat prior to the 9th of Av. And we see so many things that are happening. It is very, very easy. It would be very, very easy to just say, I need to just back off of this for a while. But that's not possible. Why? Because those of us who have a dedication to moving forward know where our destination is. And it kind of segues a little bit into this Torah portion. And once again, the person of Moses, has affected me this year in a way that I've thought about his life. I've thought about his successes, his failures, all of those things. But this year is it's not something I can really put in words. It's more something that's affecting me in a deep part of myself. And so to hear these words that Moshe begins this Torah portion, then I pleaded with Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh Elohim, you have begun to reveal your greatness to your servant and your strong hand. For what other God is there in heaven or on earth that can do the works and mighty deeds that you do? He pleaded to go across into the land. I'm not going to belabor that everything leading up to that again, but this is the first time I've ever asked the question: why did he plead? Why was he so? The word here is I pleaded, I begged, I desire to go into the land. And I think it revolves around these words, you have begun to reveal yourself. And so Moshe understood that everything that he had gone through in this journey from exile in Egypt, everything he had gone through of taking the Hebrews to Mount Sinai, the challenges, successes, failures that had happened in the wilderness. He saw on a daily basis, 6 days a week, manna come down from the heavens. He saw the rock that was following them. He saw the protection. He saw the things that had happened. And he understood, I believe, that there was a level of the revelation of the Almighty. Now, remember, this is the guy that is at the burning bush. Take your shoes off, for the place that you stand is the place you're standing is holy. This is the man who went up on the mountain, was there for 40 days, 40 nights, in the presence of Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. This is the man who, it says, and he and the elders ate in the presence of the Almighty. This is the man who saw all of these things. And I just feel like he understood this concept. There is a revelation outside of the land of Israel of our Creator. And then there is a revelation inside of the land. Now, I can personally attest to that on a level. What drives me to go back to the land? Bezrat Hashem, God willing. I'm going to be leading a tour of, at this point, about 12 people. It's not the biggest tour I've ever done, but it is an important tour. And I believe that the Father has handpicked a group of people to go over, and in the midst of all that's going on, comfort my people. But I've seen the sights. I've seen the people's faces as they see the sights. Yes, I have friends there. I have people that I have prayed for their children. I've prayed for their spouses during this time of war. I will actually be able to, it appears this time, to put faces to some of the names of the soldiers that we have helped in many ways, that I and we have prayed for through these almost 2 years now. But is that enough reason to go back to the land over and over again? No. The reason I continue to go is this. I understand that there is a revelation within the borders of what is referred to the promised land. I don't really like the words Holy Land. It just, to me, it comes up a little short in what it's. I know what people are trying to say, but it just doesn't portray the level. This is the land that He has promised to us, and there is a place there. There is a revelation there. I have learned things about my Creator in the land that I never would have learned outside of the land. That comes through being there, touching the soil. Yes, feeling the heartbeat of my Jewish brothers and sisters. The list goes on. But it is that revelation. I believe that Moshe somehow understood that everything that he had gone through outside of Israel, there was a greater revelation inside. This today should translate to us that of a pleading that he would hasten the day of his appearance. He would hasten the day of our entering into the land, into the kingdom. Because, I mean, have you ever considered there is a revelation of Him that is going to go back to those words of Rav Shaul, the Apostle Paul. Eye is not seen, ear is not heard, neither has it entered into the heart of mankind the things that He has prepared for us. And so there should be in our day a yearning, a pleading in prayer. May your kingdom come soon and in my day. He was told, no, you're not going to be able to go into the land. But he was also told, you're going to climb the mountain, you're going to look, or the word ray, the word perceive. You're going to perceive what is going to be. You know, Moshe goes, he is buried somewhere on that mountain. I've been to a couple of places. They say, well, this is where it was. No, I don't believe that. I personally feel that there is no one who actually knows, because that would be a place that people would try to go worship a man, another place like they have with the tomb of David. I don't usually take groups there just because of that concept of what I see there happening in that place. So Moshe, when we go to the story of the Mount of Transfiguration, I read that in Sunday school and vacation Bible school. We were taught this story of Yeshua going up with three of his disciples, and there in front of him is Elijah and Moshe, and they are their countenance changed. They were clothed in the kavod of Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. And the narrative normally is, okay, here's these three men that are there. This is Yeshua and Elijah and Moshe. And then it typically goes over to, Kepha and his famous words. Let's build 3 sukkahs here so we can all just stay in this place. But for me, I think that the experience that Moshe is having is the unique one that hasn't really been. I don't know that I've taught on this briefly, but I don't know if I've ever taught on it in depth. That he's the only one who has never stepped foot in the land before. Yeshua walked to that area. Elijah was in the land. The disciples are in the land. But here's Moses. This is the first time that his feet have stood in the land of Israel. I think that as this is all playing out, he's kind of looking down going, so this is what it feels like. This is what it feels like to be there. And of course, that revelation of who Messiah is, as he saw him standing next to him in the scripture says, in his glory. And so it takes us from that idea of pleading, of longing for our time in the kingdom, our time in seeing him in that glorified state. And then it tells us of a people. It says in chapter 4, and I'm just going to lift this one verse out here. It says, but you who stuck with Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, your Elohim, are still alive today, every one of you. Those who stuck to him. I get this idea like glue. How are we stuck to him? Just how strong is our bond to him? And I'm not talking about his bond to us, because I know that is a bond that is beyond anyone being able to snatch me out of his hand. I got that, but there is this, we go back to the Calvin versus Wesley. I just read in the book of Revelation this morning about the Kahal, the congregation at Laodicea. I will cast you out. I will vomit you out of my mouth. Why? Was it because of the lack of his faithfulness? No. But it was the lack of the faithfulness of the people. So how would you and I describe our stick-to-itness with him? Is it kind of like Elmer's glue or super glue? Is it like regular duct tape or Gorilla Tape? With what kind of a bond am I seeking to be from my side in this? Not his side, our side. More on that in just a moment. So we see that it goes on, and in verse 5, Look, I have taught you laws and rulings just as Yudhe-Vavhe, my Elohim, ordered me, so that you can behave accordingly in the land where you are going in order to take possession of it. Therefore observe them, follow them, for then all peoples will see see you as having wisdom and understanding. It goes on from there. Why is it, again, I know I've gone over this so many times, why is it that what is called here the rules and regulation, the laws, the ordinances, why is it that all of these things are important? I was once again talking with someone this past weekend about this. And they were talking about the importance of teaching the Torah to people. And I said to them, but why? It kind of took them back a moment, that I would be one that is asking why to them, explaining that they feel this need, and I think rightly so, to get people back on the track of actually going by what the Torah says. I can't go into more of the conversation there. But when I asked the question, well, why are you doing this? Why do you feel this need? And they kind of looked at me for a moment. And I quoted again the verse of Psalm chapter 40, verse 7. Behold, I am coming, in the scroll of the book it is written of me. And again, this is not just a rule book. Okay, if I want another rule book, I can go out and join any denomination. I can go to a Bible school. I can go to a seminary. I can join whatever club that's out there. And I can have a rule book. I can have a dress code. But see, this scripture that we look at, that is, yes, it is filled with, we could call it rules, regulations, ordinances, commands, laws, all of those things. Every single one of them is given to us as a revelation of the Messiah. But why should we teach this Torah? Because we're teaching about who the true Messiah actually is. Now, dropping down in all the way to verse 27, Moshe has not even gotten the people in the land yet. All right, they're still standing on the shore of the Jordan River. They haven't crossed in, and it seems like that if you're in that place, you would do everything you can to encourage a people about going into the land, entering into it, and then staying in it. But what does Moshe say? Starting in verse 27, he says this, Yudhe-Vavhe will scatter you. After saying you will not prolong your days there, but he will scatter you among the nations, among the peoples, among the nations, to which Yudhe-Vavhe will lead you away. You will be left few in number. There you will serve gods which are the product of human hands, made of wood and stone, which can't see, hear, or smell. However, from there you will seek Yudhe-Vavhe your Elohim. You will find him when you search for him with all your heart and being. In your distress, when all these things have come upon you in the Acharit Hayamim, the last days, you will return to Yudhe-Vavhe your Elohim and listen to what he says. For Yudhe-Vavhe your Elohim is a merciful Elohim. He will not fail you, destroy you, or forget the covenant with your ancestors, which he swore to them. Where are we today? We're in the process. You can, as I have, next to these verses in my scripture, right on the edge of the margin of the page, I wrote today. Because this is what is happening today. That because of the sin of Israel, You know, we just went through the 9th of Av, a day attributed to the 10 spies with a bad report, a day attributed to the destruction of the first and second temple, the parts of the Holocaust, the Spanish Inquisition, Gaza itself. All of this ties in with the 9th of Av. Because of the hardness of a people, they were driven from the land, went forth and served other gods. You know, we can see this. Let's don't just say, well, that's the Jews today. That's the Jews who in 70 of the Common Era were the destruction of the temple, and they were, dispersed into the lands. Well, this is also about the tribe of Dan, about the northern kingdom, about those who were followers of Yeshua in the time of 70, at the destruction of the temple. Remember that these people were living the early congregation in Jerusalem, the writings of Shaul, of Paul. This is all leading up to the destruction of the temple. Shaul is going into the areas of Ephesus, of Corinth, of Galatia, various places. He's preaching the gospel of Yeshua. This is all being done as it was centered in Jerusalem. Go into all the world. You're going to start in Jerusalem, in Judea, Samaria, to the uttermost parts of the earth. So at the time of 70, what happened? The early followers of Yeshua were also part of that diaspora, that exile from the land. And what would they do? Eventually would succumb to the doctrines of Marcion, of Constantine, which is what? Of serving gods made of wood and stone. I've been in Belgium, in Austria. I've been in different places in Europe, and I've seen the Catholic cathedrals. You know, we just had this a number of years ago with the Cathedral of Notre Dame. The steeple, the whole thing burned down, and they rebuilt it, and all these people go over there. There was a new pope. All these people go. Why? For a religion spoken of here, of your serving gods which are a product of human hands, of wood and stone. I have people I know that right now are in Rome. People are going to Rome. Why? And I'm like, why? Why in the world would I want to go and see the ruins of something that took people away from God and continues to do so today? But you and I are in the process. We're in the process of this restoration. And it's not always, this is not anybody that can read Scripture and think, well, it's just kind of it's going to be easy. God's in control, all this stuff. This process is going to be difficult. I'm going to bring out that a little bit later. But what is our response? It says in verse 39, know today and establish in your heart that Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh is Elohim in heaven above and on earth below. There is no other. Those words, I'm not going to go into the Hebrew definitions. They basically say, know, but know not just with your brain. Know within your very being. Establish it in your very being that there is only one Elohim. He is the Elohim, both of heaven and earth. There is no other. We live in a society in which everything goes. All planes lead to heaven. No, they don't. We must establish in the very makeup of our being what we will live for, who we will live for, what side will we stand on. And God willing and with his help, we will be found in the end standing on his side. It's not that he is on my side. Yeah, I believe that he's on my side. Yeah, I got that. And I pray that that never changes. I don't see that happening. But it's not about me being on, or him being on my side. It's about me being on his side. That's what I want to have established. And how do we do that? Well, he goes through the first, he gives let's review the foundation. Let's go back and review the foundation, which is the 10 words that were given on Mount Sinai. Are these words for us or not? And what about, so the Catholic Church has changed some of the words. And I've got a friend of mine that attends a church sometimes, and they've got the 10 Commandments above the platform, behind the choir. He says many times they'll be sitting there and looking up and looking at that commandment on observe the day of Shabbat and set it apart as holy. Is Shabbat Shabbat, or is it not? We have to make sure that our foundation. Yeshua said that there would be a day in which he used the wise builder and the foolish builder. The one who built his house upon stone, and the one who built his house upon sand. Well, where were the original commandments written? Were they not written in stone? So what was Yeshua referring to? He was referring to building your foundation for your house, building your house upon foundational words that are unchanging. You can write something in the sand. It's subject to the winds, the rain. If it's on the beach, to the waves, to a bird walking through it, to children making castles out of it. But when you write something in stone, the stone that was written by his hand, that is a foundation that we can be assured is stable. Of course, this week's Torah portion has the words of the Shema. Shema Israel. Let me go to the end of this chapter and then come back. So in verse 20, someday your child will ask you, what is the meaning of the instructions, laws, and rulings which Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, your Elohim, has laid down for you? Then you will tell your child, we were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt, and Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh brought us out of Egypt with a strong hand. Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh worked great and terrible signs and wonders in Egypt. Pharaoh and all his household before our very eyes. He brought us out from there in order to bring us to the land he has swore to our ancestors that he would give them. Let me stop right there. So you and I are to tell our children about our experience of leaving Egypt. Well, I've never been to Egypt. I looked over the border one time into it, and I don't want to go there. I have no reason to go to Egypt at this point in my life. So I can't talk about, I can go back to, and I can relate the story of leaving the Hebrews walking out of Egypt, and I, as a foreigner who's been joined to that family, I can go to Deuteronomy. He says, those of you who are standing here and those of you who aren't standing here. And I can relate to that. But when's the last time we told our children about the day in which we were set free from the bondage of Satan, from the bondage of the sin that came into the world through Adam and Eve? When's the last time we told them about the miraculous? Sometimes people don't want to talk about that stuff. I don't want my children to know the things that I did. Well, maybe there's some details that we might want to leave unsaid. But I believe that this is teaching us that our children and our grandchildren need to know where we came from. They need to know the miraculous events that happened in our redemption. It says, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh ordered us to observe all his laws, to fear Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh or Elohim, always for our own good, so that he might keep us alive as we are today. It will be righteousness for us if we are careful to obey all the mitzvot before Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh or Elohim, just as he has ordered us to do. The words there, he has kept us alive. But I ask you a question today. Are we alive, or are we just surviving? It's a question I'm asking myself at the moment. Am I thriving, or am I surviving? I'll move on and let you answer that question for yourself. I'm not going to give you my answer right now. Possibly my pause in the answering it might give a little bit of what I'm thinking personally in these days. He desires for us to thrive, but how can we do that? How can we thrive in this day and not just survive? Did Yeshua not say, "I've come to give them life and life abundant"? Where is that life? Let's go back to the Shema. Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, Adonai, our Elohim, Adonai is one. And you can read the rest of that verse for yourself. Well, let me continue on just a little bit. And you are to love Adonai your Elohim with all your heart, with all your being, and all your resources. And it goes on and talks about telling these things to our children, writing them down on our doorpost, upon our hand, that may all that's done in our homes, may all that we put our hand to, may it be done with this intent of bringing forth the revelation of Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh upon the earth. In Matthew, this may seem a little disconnected, but in Matthew chapter 24, I'm going to start in verse 4. It says, Yeshua replied, and this is this time of the Talmudim, the disciples, saying, what's the last days going to look like? And he says, watch out, don't let anyone deceive you, for many will come in my name, saying I am the Messiah, and will lead many astray. You will hear the noise of wars nearby, and news of wars far off. Now remember, he's speaking to them in Israel. Okay, he's not speaking to a group of Americans. So when he says wars nearby, he's telling us wars nearby Israel and wars far off. These things, wars far off, see to it that you don't become frightened. See to it that you don't become frightened. Such things must happen, but the end is yet to come. For those who would say, well, I'm just going to pray these things away. No, such things must happen. In order for us to see the revelation of the kingdom, the revelation of our Messiah in the kingdom, such things must happen. For people will fight against each other. Nations, so actually ethnic groups, will fight against each other. There will be famines and earthquakes in various parts of the world. All of this is but the beginning of birth pangs. At that time you will be arrested, handed over to be punished, and put to death. And all the peoples will hate you because of me. At that time many will be trapped and betrayed into hating each other. Many false prophets will appear and fool many people. For many people's love will grow cold because of increased distance from the Torah. But whoever holds out until the end will be delivered. The King James says, he who endures to the end will be saved. I know that those are verses that have been taught for many, many years. But let's face it, folks, if I look back to the 1980s, to the 90s, to 2000, and I look to today, it is increasing. The same as knowledge is increasing in such a way that you can't even keep up with. Violence, Hamas, violence upon the earth. How far are we away in the United States from people betraying those who are followers of Yeshua? How far? But those that endure to the end will be redeemed. So then that brings me to the Shema. Because how do we endure to the end? I'm going to give you two things that I believe are in this Torah portion. Number one is the Shema itself. Many know that my alarm is set every day to 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock. I stop whatever I'm doing, and 99.9% of the time, there will be occasionally I'll be somewhere, I'll have to hit the pause button on that, or the stop button on that, and I'll come back, I'll think about an hour later and think, I didn't do that. So I'm not trying to brag on myself in that, but I was taught about reciting the Shema, declaring the Shema, many, many years ago by a good friend of mine who's passed away, Mr. Alan Stanfield in Lucerne Valley, California. I took this into my life for a number of years and got away from it, and then I can't remember when it was. It was over 10 years ago, I know that I just made this decision that I was going to go back to this, and it was going to be a part of my life. And so I set my alarm on my phone at 9 and 3. Last week when I was in Kentucky, they said, how do you want to, we were starting at 3 o'clock. I said, how do you want to start? They said, how do you want to start the service? I said, I'd like to start the service with the Shema. And so they put the Shema into their service, but I said, let's start it it just really struck me. I'm away from my wife, my congregation, Life Assembly, but yet at 3 o'clock last Shabbat, we were connected. I don't know if they realized it, probably not, because they didn't know if we were doing the Shema at the same time or not, but I do know people that in various time zones every day that stop what they're doing and recite the Shema. And for me, it is a way of consistency. It is something that I have found that I can be consistent at. I guess you could use the word discipline, but I'm not a real disciplined person. It's, if you say, well, we're going to have a discipline of exercise, I'm probably just going to say, probably not, because I was not raised with discipline, and discipline is something that I've had to try to embrace in various areas of life. And so that word discipline kind of has a little bit of a negative connotation to me. But as I look out and I teach on creation, I see creation as consistent. Is a tree disciplined to let their leaves fall every year? I don't think that's true. It's just consistent. Consistency is a positive to me. Discipline is something I have kind of a negative feeling about, but consistency is something positive in my life. And so I could teach for a long time on the Shema, but is it really important to teach on it if we're not reciting it, we're not proclaiming it? So maybe that's something for you to, in the days ahead. To me, it brings me back. And I know some people that do it 9, 12, and 3. Okay, that's fine. Do more if you like. Set your clock every hour. It's fine with me. But this is, in the Torah portion, when Moshe looks at the Almighty and says, don't leave them without a shepherd, but raise somebody up. And he brings Joshua in. And the next thing that Moshe talks about is the morning and evening offering. Go back to the book of Numbers. So the Shema is like my morning and evening offering. It ties to the last day of the life of Yeshua also, by the way. So this is a consistency. The Shema brings me to a consistency every day, kind of almost, at times it's like a reset. You're listening to all the junk that's out there, you're watching the events that are going on, but twice a day, it's like a reset button. Reboot, this is what is important. The revelation of who He is in our lives. The second is this in verse 10. When Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, your Elohim, has brought you into the land, He swore to your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov, He would give you. Cities, great and prosperous, which you did not build. Houses full of sorts of good things, which you do not fill. Water cisterns dug out, which you didn't dig. Vineyards and olive trees, which you didn't plant. It says when you have eaten your fill, then be careful not to forget Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, who brought you out of the land of Egypt when you lived as slaves. I was with a friend of mine the other day, and they are in the process of building a house. The upstairs pretty much finished, but the downstairs still has a lot of work to be done. And I looked at him and I said, better you than me. Because through mine and Kathy's lives, we have purchased numerous houses that needed to be remodeled, need to have some up-to-date, like the house we're in now, our basement needed to be finished, various things that we've done. We've gone out and planted gardens, we've done, had to go out and get a well dug and all of these things. And I said to this friend of mine, I said, I just don't have any desire to do that again. Why? I guess because I'm looking forward to a house in the kingdom that's already been built. The vineyard has already been planted. The garden has already been tilled. The well has already been dug. I drive around the area of Judea, Samaria, drive up to the Galilee, the Golan Heights. I see specifically all these houses that have been built by the occupiers of Israel. And I wonder, one of them, did they build that for me? There's one out on overlooking Shechem, modern day Nablus, absolute mansion. I wonder, did somebody build that for me to live in? They finished the whole thing. I'm not going to have to go in and paint a wall. Maybe remodel a little bit, or repaint, freshen up. I don't know. What am I talking about? I'm talking about two things that will get us to the kingdom. Number one is consistency, and number two is dreaming. I've got a sign behind me. Dreams don't work unless you do. Are we laboring, as the King James would say? Are we working toward the kingdom? Are we all in on this? Or just kind of taking it by default? Barry and I are actually doing a program tomorrow, Foundations for Life. Are we active? Are we engaged in life today? Or is life just coming at us by default? Now, over to the last verses of this Torah portion. In chapter 7, starting in verse 9. For this you can know the Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh Elohim is indeed Elohim, the faithful Elohim who keeps his covenant and extends grace to those who love him, observe his mitzvot to 1,000 generations. It goes on from there. He is faithful. He is faithful to what? To his covenant. He is faithful to the covenant that he gave. I don't know anyone today that does not have a family member, a child, a friend, someone who is outside of the covenant. Someone who is, maybe they grew up in a religious environment, walked away. I mean, the reasons, the experiences are numerous. Without, you can't number. But we all know someone. We know numerous people who are outside of the covenant. But understand this. And sometimes it's like, I never imagined that they would turn their back. What seemingly is turning their back. But understand that he's faithful. And the reason I know that he is faithful, it says, he is faithful to 1,000 generations. Where did his faithfulness start? It started not with us. It didn't start with my grandmother. His faithfulness started in the garden. His faithfulness also started with a man named Abram, living in a pagan land. And he said, I will establish my covenant in you and through you. In you and I, those who have been grafted into Israel, those who have been adopted into the family, those of us who have joined themselves to Hashem. Why have we been allowed to do that? Because he's faithful to 1,000 generations. Talk about consistency. He's consistent. He's consistent in his faithfulness. Why? As I taught the youth and also the adults, because he had a dream. His dream is found in Revelation chapter 21. A people that he would be their God, and we would be his people. He's never lost his dream. He's never grown weary of his dream. He's never lost the consistent effort of moving forward to that dream. You and I today are caught up in it. May we enter into it with the same consistency, with consistency. May we grab hold, because the truth is that his dream, go back and read those first verses of Revelation chapter 21. Read the last verses of Isaiah 66. That's his dream. And you and I, we are a dream within his dream. And we're moving toward his kingdom. Oh yeah. Yes. Shabbat Shalom. Shavua Tov. Have a blessed, prosperous week. Bezrat Hashem. God willing. See you again next week. And until then, be strong.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha Shalom.